Hey everyone, it's the Kung Fu Genius, and I have a new series for you guys, and this is Legit or Nah. And I'm going to review, along with my good friend Dr. Kenneth Jay, training movie montages, right? Fighting, Kung Fu, and even non Kung Fu stuff. And I'm going to look at it from the Kung Fu perspective. And my good friend Dr. Kenneth Jay, who's a doctor in sports physiology, is going to review it from the perspective of someone who actually knows what he's talking about. So I'm super excited about this, and let's get started. Hey Kenneth, how you doing? It's great to see you, man.
I'm doing excellent, and thank you for having me. It's been a long time since I've seen you, man.
It has, and I just want everyone to know that this was actually your idea, and I think this was a brilliant idea. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, I think like that's stuff like evaluating stuff like this is kind of funny because you always wonder when you watch movies, is that really real, or is that just something that Hollywood or whoever is the production country puts into it?
Obviously, I'm a big Kung Fu nerd, but who doesn't like Rocky 4? Or most of the Rockies, except Rocky 5, no one talks about that one. All the other Rockies are really awesome. Rocky 4, pretty damn iconic movie. Super excited to talk about that. So let's get started. So there's actually two the training montage is almost in two parts. So just for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, I don't know, spoiler alert, do I even need to say that?
Or maybe say shame on you.
Yeah, shame on you for not. Go stop this YouTube video and watch Rocky 4 right now and then come back, all right? The training montage is kind of in two parts because the first part of it, Rocky doesn't yet have the blessing of Adrian to really go and fight essentially the guy who, killed one of his close friends, who was Apollo Creed. So it's like the first part, he's kind of struggling a little bit because his mind isn't 100% there. And then later when he gets the blessing, as is very typical in a Rocky movie, the music changes and then everything suddenly changes. So let's talk a little bit about the first part where he's kind of getting used to the different exercises. All right. So, by the way,
this
I believe
probably has one of the best soundtracks.
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
All movies.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. And this wasn't actually shot in Russia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
As to Russia as you're going to get America, though.
At that time,
you're such an encyclopedia, Alex, of knowing movie trivia.
I'm a trash bag of useless information, as my wife likes to say. So here we go. So he's starting, obviously, under the watchful eye of his Russian escorts there. He's doing his running in snow, which is obviously going to make things difficult. And then we have the comparison between him and Ivan, who's obviously the one from Russia, but Ivan is the one that is, getting the benefit of all the modern training. And obviously, if you have people in lab coats watching you train, that must be super legit. So let's talk about this part here. So we see Rocky running through the snow, and we see Ivan on, guess what's an early version of like a Versa climber or something like that.
Exactly.
So, okay. Cardio is also one of your many wheelhouses. So in terms of developing the type of stamina you need to have a boxing match, would you, just comparing these two, and it's not the only thing, to be fair, they all do a lot of different training in this montage, but just like comparing one to one, because that's kind of what the montage does. Rocky does this, Ivan does this. Running through the snow with the impediments and how difficult it is versus doing something on a modern machine like a Versa climber, all right? I'm the Kung Fu Genius, so I'm out of my wheelhouse here. This is going to be your show today. Which one, or is it apples and oranges? I mean, how would you compare these two methods?
It's a tough one, and it's probably going to be a draw between them because running in the snow in heavy boots, and you're wearing a heavy jacket and stuff like that, you actually are running with quite a decent amount of load. And every time you take a step on the snow, you're gonna compress the snow underneath you. So that kind of means like what you're stepping on is giving in a little bit, which is going to make it tremendously harder for you to keep up the pace and keep up the acceleration. So what usually happens is that when you run in snow, or if you've ever tried to running on a beach, is that you constantly have to keep accelerating in order just to stay at the same pace, which is what makes it tremendously difficult. And it's a great cardio stimulus. On top of that, he's outside. He's running in nature. It's beautiful scenery and stuff like that. He's breathing fresh air. He's breathing cold air, and cold air is actually interesting because it has a higher density of oxygen compared to hot air, because we do know from physics that when something is cooled, it kind of compresses and settles. So more oxygen molecules are actually in, if you could take a cup of the air that he breathes, it'll have more oxygen molecules in it compared to in a hot climate where everything has expanded because of the temperature. It's going to have less oxygen in it. That's also why a car and a supercharged car, if it's cold outside, you actually get more horsepower out of it. So the same thing here. So there are some benefits to that. Then we got Ivan Drago. He's in the lab. He has all the scientists, and he has one of my favorite pieces of exercise equipment, which is the early version of the VersaClimber. This is unbelievably hard. It is a full body workout. It's actually a combination of cardio and strength. It's very similar to rowing. It involves a lot of the muscles of the upper body. We're probably talking above 80%, 85% of total body skeletal muscle, which actually provides an additional stimulus. And because they're going to go fighting, they're not going to be in a running contest. You also need to have adaptations to your muscles of your upper body. And that part is Rocky not really getting by running in the snow. So in this face-off, it's pretty much an even trade-off. But if you twist my arm like you know you're good at, then I'm gonna say that the Drago training style here takes the win.
Got it. And it's also interesting, I think, because they later showed Drago getting, some extra horsey supplements stuck into him. But I think everyone knows that Sylvester Stallone was probably on the most amount of horsey sauce for this role because he's looking so beefy for this one. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. Yeah, so we have all the different terrain. Obviously, makes it challenging. I don't know. Drago looks like he's struggling to run a little bit, though. He's got maybe too much muscle mass on there. Yeah. Look at these machines. The big guy. Look at these machines. Yeah. It's so funny.
That actually looks like something straight out of the lab at the University of Copenhagen. That's how it looks. Yeah, external rotation there.
Yeah, I saw that too. Obviously, as someone who is recovering from shoulder surgery, I understand the importance of training these things, but purely in terms of strength training selection for someone who is boxing, does it make sense to train that kind of rotation with presumably, it looks like he's putting a lot of weight and he's doing that with the same level of intensity one might be doing deadlifts with or something like that. Does that make sense unless he's rehabbing from something?
No, it really doesn't make sense because the external rotators of the shoulder are small muscles and they're there to stabilize your shoulder blade. And if you exercise them intensely like that, you're pretty quickly going to run into overuse injuries from that. And on top of that, I have a hard time seeing why you would choose an exercise like that if you're preparing for a fight. So in terms of cost-benefit ratio out of that or potential cost, it's not a good choice. It really it's much better to do what Rocky does and help lifting that horse carriage up on the wheels again.
Got it. And we're about to see that one. Yes, and this was another one I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, the difference between using a speed bag where you're hitting it in a more natural way as opposed to moving something in a fixed fashion, although I assume that whatever he's kind of pedaling his arms against also has some resistance that's maybe not present. But my totally uneducated brain would say it's probably better to just hit the speed bag because it's more natural. But is that would you concur with that?
Absolutely. Between those two, the speed bag wins by a long shot. There is a significant amount of hand-eye coordination and hand-to-hand coordination going on in order to get a speed bag going like that, which Drago gains nothing from the hand cycling. Again, what he's doing on a hand cycling is great for upper body cardiorespiratory fitness, but it doesn't bring the elements of hand-to-hand coordination or hand-eye coordination, and it also takes the rhythm out of things. One of the big things in fighting, as you know, is that your ability to get into a rhythm. And what I also like to talk about in relation to that is the broken rhythm and adapting to a different rhythm. So it's the adaptation and the transition from one rhythm to another, and you can do that on a speed bag. You can't do that on that fixed motion hand bite. You can only control RPMs on that, but you can do different combinations on the speed bag and everything. So that wins by a long shot.
Got it. Excellent. Yeah, so far all the strength training Ivan Drago is doing looks like the stuff I'm doing for PT right now, just with way more weight. Here we go. We got the sawing going on.
Yeah.
Obviously a lot of core in there.
Yeah. In the cold.
Yes. I also wanted to ask you, as someone with a lot of lifting experience, what you thought of Dolph Lundgren's clean there, and he also does a clean and press later. What do you think of his technique there? Pretty clean, or is it movie grade?
Well, let's just say those plates were fake.
Okay, got it, right?
All right, so because that looked absolutely horrible. You can't catch a bar with that much load where you basically are supporting the bar here and your elbows underneath it. A bar like that, because that's going to bring all the weight down in front of your body. So what you need to do is bring your elbows forward so it rolls the bar back, so it basically sits across your upper chest and your front delts. That's the only way to support it. You would be incredibly strong if you were able to just hold it like that. And actually, in Rocky Balboa movie, you see Sylvester Stallone do the exact same mistake when he does the clean. I think it's with 350 or something like that, and he holds it completely off his own center of gravity, which would not be possible if the weights had been real. So again, this looks impressive for the untrained eye, but from the technical standpoint, the potential for injury and all of that, between that and throwing the logs and sawing and the stuff we see Rocky do in this, I would also compare those two and say I'll give it to Rocky on that one.
Interesting. All right. So let's go ahead and continue. Now we have another training modality here, this kind of the sled drag versus the kind of more modern track version. Now, so I'm looking at this. Obviously, there's a lot of muscular endurance going on here. What, in general, I mean, I think you basically have two different versions of the same exercise. Is there a big difference between the two? And would this even be something? I mean, it looks cool, but I mean, is this something that like a boxer, like a boxer trainer would have his student do?
Yes, and it does happen, and CrossFitters do this all the time. But the mistake that Rocky and his team is making here is that there's way too much load on the sled because he cannot get a rhythm going. It hardly moves forward. So that means that it's too much of a load, and it looks heavy because we got Rocky's brother-in-law sitting on it, and we got a bunch of rocks, and it's in snow, so it sinks down and everything. He cannot get a momentum. Plus, it's only ropes that's wrapped around Rocky's shoulders, which basically means that he's going to injure himself because they're going to cut into his shoulders as well, even though he has that tough leather jacket on. You need a momentum going with an exercise like this. A crawling pattern and pushing forward like this against something like we see Ivan Drago do on that machine kind of looks like it's the bottom part of that Versa climber that they just tilted and laid down horizontally. Is a tremendous leg strengthening workout, but also muscular endurance workout. Between those two, Ivan Drago wins on this one.
Got it. Interesting. Also, you see a lot of the CrossFitters doing those sled things. Is it more beneficial to push it or to pull it, or does that not really matter?
Well, it's two different things, because if you push your driving forward, so it's basically your posterior muscles that are working. So it's everything that does this. Whereas when you're dragging something or pulling something, it's everything on the backside. So you should do both. It's not one or the other, it's both.
Got it. Excellent. All right, let's go. All right, so we got Rocky doing his pull-ups here. While his coach is looking on. Is there an Ivan Drago equivalent? Oh, we got the log carry. Again, a lot of the same similar principles of dealing in the snow.
Yep.
And all the typical 80s slow motion head turns. Wouldn't be an 80s action movie without those.
Yeah, and we see here, if you could pause it for a second,
Sure.
is that we see Drago. We see Drago actually doing sparring.
Yes.
Where we see Rocky trying to come up with something that kind of mimics sparring, but doesn't actually do the same thing. So
Right.
they're looking at, let's find an equivalent strengthening natural, if you will, in the nature strengthening exercise that looks like it uses the same muscles as sparring. But again, in this case, if you're going into a fight, you should spar. That's just how it is, because like logs not hit back, right?
Absolutely. Oh, also notice when Rocky's doing his pull-ups, he would do one in the front and then he would do one behind the neck. And I also know that, like, just, this is maybe more a question for me for lat pull downs. They tell you nowadays you shouldn't do the lat pull down behind the neck. Does that really matter? Is that a thing? Or is that just people telling you stuff?
Yeah, with most things in the strength and conditioning industry, it's most about people telling you stuff that they actually know nothing about, because there's nothing wrong with that if you have the prerequisites for it. And in this case, doing to the back of your head requires a lot of external rotation ability of your shoulders. And if you don't have that, you can injure your shoulders from it. Also, if you have impingement in the front, in the impingement syndrome, or you have a swollen tendon, the bicep tendon that runs down here, it can be pretty difficult to get that external rotation going without any pain. And then it's going to be a problem. And if you force it, again, I'm going to turn sideways here, you'll see that people, in order to pull the bar down or pull themselves up to the back of the head, they're going to be doing this, right? So all of a sudden now you're loading all of the muscles in this area, and you have this weird forward position of your head, which is not good for anything, especially not under load. So, but if you can do it properly, you have the proper shoulder mechanics for it, then absolutely do pull-ups to the back of your head.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and continue here. Oh, by the way, I was also thinking, if we are kind of doing what we did last time for Drunken Master, we rate it with the fists or whatever. I think what we should actually do is, instead of rating the overall montages, rate Rocky's training versus Ivan's training this time. Like, who got more fists in terms of doing a better job for preparation. I totally agree with you on the sparring, though. I didn't even realize before. It's like, Rocky's not actually sparring in his training.
Yeah. That's definitely problematic.
Although, I don't know, Ivan just beating the crap out of some tin cans. I don't know how much sparring that is, just lining up a bunch of tin cans for him to beat up.
But it's interesting here because Ivan Drago is such a big guy. Dolph Lundgren is big. And one of the challenges for big guys is to have enough cardio and having enough stamina. And if we actually counted up how many minutes or seconds of this training montage we see him do something that's cardio-like, it actually indicates that he's focusing on one of the right areas that he knows is going to be a weakness, because he's so much bigger than Rocky. And even though it is a heavyweight fight, Rocky will have much better stamina simply because he's smaller. So that's actually on the a plus for Ivan Drago.
Interesting. All right, so now we see here, Adrian has come. She's given Rocky the blessing. That means that the music is going to change, and he's going to get ready to kick some ass. So now, we see the second coming here. All right,
here we go.
Wow, looking saucy as hell in this movie.
Yeah, that's for sure.
He's on
low body fat.
He's on all the special supplements. But he definitely worked hard for that.
Yeah, that's like a 5, maybe even a 4% body fat for that movie.
Yeah, that's
right,
incredible.
That is crazy.
Here's a quick one. I'm pretty sure I know what you're gonna say there, but comparing that the two ab routines there versus Ivan just doing that one there with the weighted machine versus doing what Rocky was doing. I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, but which one is better?
It's probably going to be a toss-up. I don't like the fact that it seems like Ivan Drago is strapped into a machine for this one. It makes sense from a position of if he's going for max weight and see how much his abs can actually contract, how much weight he can lift like this, then it would make sense. But taking too much movement out of it, making it very isolated. I think he would also benefit from what Rocky is doing there. Rocky has a greater range of motion. He's hanging upside down, which can be a challenge because you can get dizzy and your whole vestibular function can get shot. But he's getting a greater range of motion. He has the ability to manipulate the speed greater. He stops and does an isometric, which is something that I'm a big fan of, being able to go from a dynamic contraction shortening ab motion to a static where it doesn't change length. Practicing that, I think, is extremely valuable. Now, again, we could also go into the fact that maybe Rocky is not using enough load, because it does look like he could do that forever and ever and ever.
Right.
So we need to find the right balance between load, range of motion, and all of these things. Overall, what I would choose with this, if I had a training partner to hold down my legs and hang down from the top of something in a barn, I would choose the Rocky approach with this. But it's not to say that I wouldn't play around with the machine that Drago is using either.
Interesting. Excellent. All right. Getting better. It's that time in the montage where you start to see all the improvements.
Yeah.
All right. Trademarks to
at
lone
least
boxing.
At least he's hitting mitts.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go. The speed bag again versus the hand bike.
Oh, and that one, that's interesting.
Yeah. What do you think of this? Like, what I like about it, I mean, there's a lot going on. He's moving on multiple planes of motion. He's turning. He's pulling. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, obviously, a lot of these things I think are geared for the aesthetics, how they look on camera, but
yeah.
You know, what do you say about that as a boxer's exercise selection?
Okay, so we probably have to separate that exercise out a little bit, because there's stuff going on there that we wouldn't be able to replicate in real life, because the load is simply too high, or it's too much of a load for him to do a basic tricep extension with it at the very end of it, because it takes his entire body weight to pull it around and get down on his knees, and he's almost struggling to stay down. There is no way he's going to be able to take that amount of weight and do a double overhead tricep extension with it. What I do like about this is that any type of motion where you have a significant amount of rotation, where he turns with it, that requires not only footwork, but it requires the integration of the upper body and the lower body. And that goes through the core. So we talked about how important ab muscles are in terms of being able to stabilize the spine and all of these things. But another component is the rotational stuff. So you cannot only focus on all of this, either bracing for when you're doing it like in a deadlift so it doesn't move. You have to add that torso rotation if you're going to have if you want to be able to punch and kick and all of these things. So the rotation that he does with that amount of weight, that's going to seriously give him some shredded oblique muscles. And that's going to be very supportive also when he needs to brace and stabilize his spine. So for that part of it, it's 2 thumbs up, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up on that one. That's for sure. But this part, it's
way too much for the tricep extension. Got it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that must be 2 different cuts there. Yeah, there you see it's a separate cut, because there's no way he's doing a tricep extension with that.
No.
Yeah, see, there you see he even can't do it on that one.
No. There is no way he would be able to do that.
And here we have the dragon flag. Looks very similar to that famous photo of Bruce Lee doing it.
Yeah, named after him also.
Oh, is that where the name comes from?
Oh yeah, so it's called the dragon flag because of Bruce Lee's nickname. Yeah. So it comes from that.
I haven't actually really tried. I've done different things, holding my legs out and stuff, but I never actually tried that because I could never quite. I guess you can just hold on to the bench. I always thought Bruce had something with handles, but this is obviously not just the abs going on here, though. There's quite a bit going on as well, right?
Yeah, so this is a static stabilizing exercise where you use leverage, or where you use the size and the length of your body as the resistance lever. So the longer legs you have and the longer torso, the harder it's going to be, because the point of rotation is going to be up here in the back, because you're supported on your back muscles, and that's actually the only thing that is moving, and it's only moving slightly. So this is a static position. This is the stabilizing position. And it's a gymnastics exercise, and it requires a lot of total body strength and tension in order to be able to pull this off. I've done many of these, and I've actually taken it to the part where I was on a bench and holding on, and then the bench was short, so my feet would drop down below the bench level, so I would get a bigger range of motion. Wow. And I was holding a dumbbell between my feet as well to give it even more resistance, and it absolutely fries your midsection. It absolutely does. So how I like the upside down ab work for dynamic stuff. A dragon flag exercise like that, if you're strong enough to actually be able to do a couple of reps, is absolutely amazing. And then add in the torso rotation stuff, then you got it all right there. So if you can figure out something to do with the rotation, you can do something where you're stabilized and your spine does not move and you're contracted all around it. And then if you can do something that's very dynamic for your abdominals as well, then you're covered.
And look at these numbers here. What are those? So, you know, what is that? Pounds? What is it? What are those numbers there?
Yeah, I actually don't know. It can pretty much be anything. But you would probably look at pounds of force in the impact. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that it's pounds per square inch or per square centimeters. I think it's the total amount of impact that you can calculate. So it's a force plate behind that, behind the soft part, that actually measures how much energy you're putting into the plate, and that's translated into a force measurement. It could also be in newtons, which is the standardized SI unit for talking about forces, but then the numbers are quite low actually, because like 2,000 newtons, that's only around 200 kilos, which is 400 pounds. And I would definitely expect a heavyweight to hit a whole lot harder than that. I would expect a heavyweight to get close to maybe 2,000 pounds. So that's why I'm thinking that it may be total pounds of force on the plate.
Got it.
Yeah.
And don't they have the famous line in Rocky IV, whatever he hits, he destroys?
Yeah.
And there, his special injections.
Yeah. Again, rotational ab work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rocky wins that one. That's for sure.
But Rocky's not getting the horsey sauce. Oh, look, there you go. Crumbling the photo.
Yeah. Oh, and here we got a different version of the clean and press.
Yes.
But in 2 takes, if you noticed, because there's a grip issue with if you're trying to do it with a horse carriage like he is.
Wow, Sylvester's delts looking quite impressive.
Yeah, very much so.
So you said
you
said there was he changed the grip after he lifted it up. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the clip.
Well, we didn't see it, but he had to, because you're lifting up from here, then you have an underhand grip.
Yes.
And how are you going to get it up so you can switch it to here? You cannot do that smoothly. And that's probably where the barbell comes into play, because that rotates, the collars rotate, so you can just flip your wrists and get around it like that. So Rocky will have to do it. And he's in trouble, because when he lifts up like this with what I imagine is a lot of weight, how is he going to, in one motion, quickly get underneath that? Right. He's not going to be able to, really. And then there's a whole other thing. I actually don't think that it's that heavy to lift a horse carriage like that, because of the lever arm.
The lever, yes.
The lever. Because he's far away from the center of mass of the entire carriage with all the people sitting on it, his coach is sitting on it. So I actually don't think it's that heavy to lift. Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah. And outrunning the car.
Yeah, being followed by the KGB. Out of curiosity, because I know you've done a lot of scientific testing, we see Dolph Lundgren on that treadmill. Why does he have things strapped to his head? What are those things measuring? he has like two like things strapped on his head. What is that measuring?
Yeah, well, if he has electrodes on his head, it could be brain activity, what is going on in his brain, but I don't know for sure what they would use that for.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think it's for temperature monitoring.
Oh, okay.
So it's making sure that he's not overheating.
Interesting.
But it would be the wrong place to do it, on the forehead. You would need a rectal thermometer in order to do that properly.
Maybe he's got one of those too. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And he outruns the KGB in their Mercedes here. Yeah. And then we have the comparison of the incline on running with an incline on the treadmill, or a ever increasing incline, versus running in the snow uphill.
Yeah.
But I totally see what you're saying about the two different methods, that when you are running in snow, you never actually get to benefit from any momentum. So essentially every time you're running, you have to go full acceleration, which I would assume then means you most likely can't do it nearly for the same length of time, right? Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that so the choice between the two is going to be, what are you trying to accomplish with this? Mm-hmm. Because if you're trying to accomplish having a high sustainable work output, which is necessary if you're going to do 15 3-minute rounds, then you need to be able to keep going, because otherwise you're going to be stopping before you actually tax your system maximally. So that's why in this case, also because even though he is in the nature running up a mountain and everything, and the air is nice and all of these things, and even if he can get some kind of momentum, there's always the risk of him slipping and falling. And you don't want to do that before a fight, because injuring yourself right up to that's just not going to be good. So I would choose the treadmill incline any day between those two.
Got it. All right. Again, some crazy measurements in the thousands for Ivan.
Yeah, I have no idea what that
6,300
something. Yeah.
Yeah. And what a great
he's on
shot.
Top of the mountain.
What an amazing shot.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So that pretty much rounds out the two. So, all right. Overall, how would you rate Rocky's training versus Ivan's training?
So who's the winner of those two? Who does the best overall training with this? I actually think, and this is not just because I'm a huge Rocky fan, because I'm actually also a huge Dolph Lundgren and Ivan Drago fan. I actually once gave someone an autograph riding Dolph Lundgren because they stopped me in the street of Los Angeles. But in this case, I actually do think that Rocky wins a little. He takes the lead in terms of training methods, and what actually does it is the amount of emphasis that he puts on his core training, which I love, which is a huge plus in my book. And he does do a lot of cardio with that. Which is one of the advantages that he can have against Ivan Drago. On the downside, however, and this is where it becomes a close call, is that he doesn't do any sparring. That's probably my biggest thing with this. He doesn't do any sparring. He chops down a big tree, and that's it. But again, I'm still going to give it to Rocky, because this is Rocky 4, and he already beat the crap out of Mr. T, and he beat the crap out of Carl Weathers twice.
Yes.
Before this, so I'm still going to give it to him. He has the experience to go into a fight without sparring.
Yeah.
So.
Not only does he have the 2 Apollo Creed fights, he also beats Clubber Lang. He also has that fight against Thunder Lips, aka Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Cool. So Rocky wins out. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Rocky, but it's a close call.
All right, fantastic. My opinion, by the way, on this doesn't matter. For me, it's I love listening to you talk about this stuff. I agree with you, but mainly because I don't have any skin in this game here. That was absolutely fantastic. Cool. All right, guys. So what did you think about what we said today about these montages? Do you agree with us? Do you think we're full of crap? Let us know right in the comments. What kind of movies would you like me and Dr. J to do next time? Write that down there. Let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Kung Fu Genius. And I look forward to hearing from you guys.